Welcome y'all to the second episode of Season 4 of the Gateway Geeks Podcast, Lo-Fi is Our Aesthetic. This time, the three dudes you're used to are joined by Sarah Jane Connor as we discuss Antiheroes, Animal Crossing, and presidential history at great length. Conspiracy theories abound as we drill down on novelty toilet paper and Chris's lifelong obsession with murder babies. Join us and escape your quarantine in a purely spiritual sense as we bombard you with the second episode in our first week, and please don't get used to that. Before we hand it over to your various hosts, me, Aaron, Sarah, and Chris, in our past iterations, I just want to, and this one's going to be just totally unedited. So the podcast you get through your regular podcast apps is going to be a little bit more streamlined. This is just kind of how it's spilled out of our brains. So enjoy. So do we want to stick with this and with the theme that we ostensibly, or that we begin this document with, because it seems like it's going to just descend into chaos throughout.
Well, if you're ripping audio, should we introduce ourselves?
Perhaps.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Is there an intro to this podcast?
He records the intros separately, but like voice, that doesn't really work for voices.
But so here's my thing. Aesthetically, okay, so is everyone in this willing to be like a regular person while we're doing this at least? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll just, so go ahead. Everyone introduce yourselves, and I will do something with that audio. Chris.
Oh, hi.
Your top left.
I'm Chris Knetzer. I have strong opinions about insignificant things.
Are we reading our Twitter bios? Is that what we're doing?
That's my epitaph.
I don't actually know what my Twitter bio currently is.
Mine is either.
That's a good bio.
At least say your name.
Am I going? Sorry. I'm Sarah Jane Connor. I'm also here, I guess.
I'm picturing this actually being carved on your guys' respective tombstones.
I'm Aaron Robb, yada, yada, and yada.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can record mine later when I can think about it more and therefore sound
fuck you.
Much more thoughtful than you guys.
Everyone else is under the gun. Joe's like, I'm going to write something. Let me get a writer's room together.
Workshop it a little bit, Oh, man. Okay. So we started off, initially the plan was to talk about like 90s anti-heroes, and because I don't remember, in the first episode, we were talking about revenge fantasies for some reason. Yeah. Maybe because it was just three white dudes in a Zoom meeting, and that's what comes up. I don't know.
I'm here to offer feminist legitimacy to this podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. Your check is in the mail.
That's my goal.
But you know what, actually, and I think we've talked about this like on the previous iteration of the podcast when we were talking about like the whole, is it 3 movies with Old Boy and like the Korean, I forget what the trilogy is actually called. It's like, what is it, Aaron? Like Lady Vengeance?
Oh, no, it's I know what you mean. I can't remember what it is either, but it's like, damn, no, I can't remember it either.
I'll splice it in. We need like a robot voice. We were talking about this last time. We need like our hosts are getting Alzheimer's, just like robot correction voice. But yeah, so it was definitely a theme in the 90s because I was just thinking about like movies I was into. I don't know about the rest of you all, but I was thinking about like Memento and Fight Club and like just all these anti-heroes who were really like the same guy, which to me was always kind of like the message of Fight Club is it doesn't matter who Tyler is because he's kind of like every white dude who's watching this movie in some ways.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Don Draper and Dexter and Walter White and every wronged white dude.
Well,
so,
Don Draper is like, I mean, how long till you actually find out what his story is in the show? Isn't it like almost the end of the show? Like when you actually find out what happened?
Season 1.
I kept checking in.
It was like the end of season 1 when you find out that he's like faking his whole identity.
Right.
It was pretty early.
And I guess he's like a weird archetypal, like retro. I don't know. He's like a precursor to the 90s white guy.
What I love about
Chris,
Draper, though, Well, the great thing about Don Draper is that he's clearly built where the writers are like, all right, everybody throw out the only plot lines that don't work anymore. Like, adopting identities, just moving like 100 miles away and you're a new person.
Yeah.
This is your chance to use all of your things that are ruined by cell phones, by the internet.
Honestly, pre-internet, it was so easy to do crimes.
I know.
It was so much easier to run grifts.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, but now it's just easier to run bigger grifts faster.
On more people at once. Yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough. But what about the old-fashioned mom and pop grifts, Chris?
Look.
Big grift.
Well, and you know what though? It's interesting that we bring up grifters because to me that's like if you think about when like for example, American Gods was written in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the Mr. Wednesday character is kind of that. It's like just some dude, like some traveling salesman driving around, you know, middle America screwing people out of their money and their souls or whatever. Speaking of American Gods and Neil Gaiman, so I thought this would be like an interesting thing to talk about because I feel like most people who are into geek culture in any way will have some kind of very strong opinion about Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer, I guess, getting divorced. I don't know. The reason I bring this up is because it's like a public airing of grievances that could really only happen in our era. Like if we're talking 90s, it would have just been like some tabloid crap and no one would even, first of all, I feel like no one would really care as much about these two people. Like no one would really know as much about them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, okay, so just for the sake of our listeners who might not know what's going on, Joe, tell us what is happening with Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I'm your tabloid correspondent.
I'll be honest. I looked this up this morning because I didn't know about it until it was in the Google Doc.
Yeah. I mean, so the reason I saw Chris say something about it, but Tracy is super into Amanda Palmer, like her music, because she and some of her friends have been into, what is it called? Oh my God, the Dresden Dolls. That's her band. And then she's been in a bunch of other stuff. And she kind of just, apparently during quarantine, her and Neil Gaiman, who they've been married for like, 5-10 years, something like that?
So closer to 10, I think, but yeah.
And if you don't know who Neil Gaiman is, get the fuck off our podcast anyway. Yeah. So,
welcome to the Gatekeepers podcast.
But anyway, so basically, like they're having a very public airing of their, I guess they're getting like separated or something. And Amanda Palmer, in very typical Amanda Palmer fashion, kind of, I don't know, she basically like lives everything that she does in public. She's like a performer.
Do not bury the lead. She put it on her Patreon blog.
Did put it on her Patreon. Thank you. That's right. But the thing is, that actually like
it wasn't just a public grievance. It was a premium public grievance.
That's right. That's right. And then she did some weird thing where she was like, I guess like maybe Neil Gaiman told some of their friends or something like that, because she's like, since Neil's telling everyone, this is now on my Patreon. And her thing is this, so she wrote this book that I really wanted to like, because I really like the idea of artists not having to rely on like big institutions and stuff to make money and to do what they want to do. And it was, it's called The Art of Asking. I think that's what it was called. And it was just like a book that based on a TED talk, it kind of seemed like, where she was basically just like, well, the reason you're not successful as an artist is that you're just not asking people for money, basically.
Yeah. Well, and here's the most infamous example of it from her. She had a Kickstarter so that she could go on tour, and her plan was to invite musicians and to play when she went to particular towns and pay them in applause and beer.
Yeah.
Exposure.
Right. And she was already, like, when she did this, she was already relatively famous. Like, this wasn't how she became well known.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just particularly bad.
Yeah.
And I guess I should also say that Neil Gaiman is probably like 10, 20 years older than she is.
Oh,
It's a significant age gap, yeah.
Yeah, at least 20.
Yeah, it has like adult children as old as her. So it's,
Yeah,
Close.
it's kind of skeevy anyway. Like, if we're
Look, that is what it is. Okay, part of that background is she made this giant plan for this tour where she's like, we're gonna do bare bones guerrilla touring. And it wasn't just for the tour; it's for an entire album. She was gonna finance the entire album via Kickstarter, and it was gonna be this back to basics, bare bones. We'll raise like $50,000 basically through pre-sale. She basically used it as a pre-sale.
Mm-hmm.
With bonuses, and we'll use this to tour, and we'll had this whole plan together. The problem is she did not expect to raise over $1 million from that Kickstarter. I think it was the first Kickstarter that went north of $1 million, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was big news when it happened.
Uh-huh.
And then she did not change any part of the plan with a 7-digit budget where she was still like couch surfing on fans' couches, asking for free opening acts.
And I think what incensed people about that is, until that time, a lot of what Kickstarter and that sort of thing was used for was like, here is kind of a grassroots project that we're trying to get working. And she was like one of the first really famous people to say, oh, I'll just use this instead of having to like sign a record deal.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay, this is my financial disclosure. I was one of those people because it was just like, I like the Dresden Dolls. It's like, whatever, here's $10, mail me the CD when it comes out.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just what everyone did. And I don't know, the album sucked, but
but he's gonna make some great albums now, I think.
Well, and like, I have this theory that I think like the problem with the album was that like the success of it killed it.
Yeah.
Because like I have such weird audio productivities where like I really liked the Dresden Dolls stripped down sound of just two people.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't Dresden Dolls. This was an Amanda Palmer thing.
Right.
And she makes $1 million. She hires like a 30-piece band, and it gets very big. And I'm just like, all right, I'm out. This isn't my deal.
Well, no. We need to discuss the other side of this whole Neil Gaiman Amanda Palmer thing.
The Goodreads.
Neil Gaiman's passive aggressive on Goodreads.
The sure, Jan, your account was hacked.
Oh yeah. Okay. So Neil Gaiman. So like, I don't remember how long after that first disclosure that Neil Gaiman put on Goodreads. It was something like how to deal with like a bipolar abusive spouse when you're getting divorced or something like that.
He added it to his currently reading. He added it to his currently reading page.
It was like he deliberately had to have looked for a title to say that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there are books with much more, subdued titles that would have been just as good.
Yeah.
Can I throw out my disclaimer though, where I increasingly think he might be telling the truth? Because look, we give a pass to boomers that we like. He's still a boomer, right? Yeah, boomer, Gen X, straddles that line right there, right?
Yeah.
This is Zoomer humor, if there has ever been. Like, using your Goodreads to subtweet your ex. This is some millennial Zoomer shit, right? Like, this is too good.
Right.
Well, I mean, my hot take on it is, if you're in anger, makes people do stupid shit. Was it clever? Was it clever? Yes. Was it kind? No. Was it human? Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean,
right, but like, I don't see, Neil Gaiman has never been known for brevity.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
Which is part of what we love about him. But it's not like if he had established like a Twitter account that was the personification of her narcissism, and it played out over the course of the next 5 years. Like, okay, that's Neil Gaiman.
Right, and we're also talking to the guy who still, like, have you seen his about the author pictures in his books? Like, they're
the best? What are you talking about?
They're both, I mean, first of all, anyone who's that famous for that long is clearly going to be, like, somewhat narcissistic. You know what I mean? So, like, glass houses, for one thing. I don't know. I mean, I tried really hard to give Amanda Palmer the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, Neil Gaiman. I like Neil Gaiman because he does The Sandman, and I don't like Amanda Palmer because I don't know. She's like a newer, crappier Tori Amos or something. But I actually like Tori Amos. But but I think part of what was so weird about it to me was just like Tracy got me this album. It's like a vinyl record it's called like A Night with Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer, and it's just like them sitting on a stage, and it's actually pretty great.
Oh yeah.
And so I really wanted to like her, but I think it's just like in the divorce, you choose mom or dad, and I just chose dad. I think that's what it is. I'm just gonna forgive myself for that. I don't know.
Like Palmer's just that classic sort of. I don't want to step on toes. She's look, Neil Gaiman. You know how I always talk about Batman. There's the Caped Crusader, Dark Knight spectrum.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When it comes to theater kids, the spectrum is Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman.
Yeah,
Both
that's
just
correct.
Yeah.
Two extreme versions of the kid who peaked in high school theater and never want to let that feeling go.
Yeah.
Where am I on that scale?
Oh,
Chris. Oh, Chris is cutting out. Look.
no. Oh, you're I don't know. You're definitely closer to the Gaiman spectrum because you're like, you know, you like to keep him guessing a little bit.
That's true. I'm very mysterious.
And if I had to guess which one of the two of them was really into the monkeys, it's definitely Gaiman.
Oh, for sure. I think that's confirmed. Yeah. I feel like he's talked about that.
Yeah.
That's a prerequisite.
Yep.
All right. So now that we've got that in there, so like what I'm doing with this, just FYI with this outline, is I'm just trying to cram all this stuff in, and then I'm going to like rearrange it when I'm editing.
Oh, sure.
Because I was thinking before, I was like, oh, I'll just type in the outline as we go through, but I'm like, oh, I could just keep the outline, be like a rigid textual person. That's fine.
I just want to make a cold open out of all of you laughing at me for seriously considering buying Quibi just to watch Reno 911.
Yes.
What is Quibi?
Don't buy Quibi.
That's
Don't
the
pay money
question.
for that.
Okay.
You cannot financially reward this kind of behavior.
For Aaron's benefit, Quibi is a new streaming service exclusively for phones.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You have to stream through the mobile app. The episodes are no more than 10 minutes. They set like an absolute maximum of 10 minutes. And I don't know who all is behind this, but there's like billions of dollars that were being spent to produce things before everything.
This is Network 54's Blipverse.
Yeah.
Well, and like I have this pet theory that the entire thing is a union dodge. Because I'm 90% sure that 10 minutes is the cutoff between web content and an actual TV series for the purpose of a lot of union contracts. But they have new Reno 911, which if there was ever a series that was one, perfect for 10-minute episodes.
That is true.
And two, perfect for cell phone videos. Where apparently a lot of the episodes are from the perspective of the public recording them being fuck ups.
I'm just looking at their shows right now, and my rebuttal to this, Chris, could just be to read the names of the shows.
Right. Okay.
Read the names.
The other one that I'm kind of half interested in is one that's called Dummy.
Dummy? Okay, yeah. Where
Oh, is that the Anna Kendrick sex doll one?
Okay, but
right,
the
who's
background...
who's ripping off Whitney Cummings' stand-up?
No. It's so much weirder than you think. Okay. The showrunner of that show is Dan Harmon's fiance.
Oh.
Okay. The main character, played by Anna Kendrick, is named Cody. Her name. The fiance, the new boyfriend in the show, is named Dan. And the sex doll...
Oh my God.
Yes, the sex doll is based on Dan Harmon's sex doll. Which she found out about after they started dating, which is funny because the rest of the internet is well aware of Dan Harmon's relationship with sex dolls. And her feeling incredibly self-conscious about the fact that she felt like she was competing for attention with a sex doll.
Oh my God. Okay, with that background, you may... I don't know, man. I still can't. Okay, Chris, the other shows, Agua Donkeys.
Yes.
Architecture, which is just a dog in front of a dollhouse.
Yes.
Chrissy Court, in which Chrissy Teigen is a judge.
I'd watch that.
I mean, I wouldn't pay money to watch it, but yeah, I would watch it.
Right, exactly. Like, some of these would make interesting... Okay.
Some of these are like a good premise for one of those videos that Adult Swim would sometimes do in between episodes of television shows, but like that's it.
Right.
Does anyone else really miss Comedy Central infomercials? Like, that was the best series they ever did. Oh my God.
Yeah. Comedy Central. So I was telling these guys last time, Sarah, that when I was home, like, recovering from chemo stuff, my mom kept coming over and like staying with us for a night or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we got her like this weird cable package where it's like you just pick out 10 channels so she could watch, you know, her MSNBC or whatever.
Yeah,
and we got Comedy Central on that. Comedy Central is a fucking wasteland now. It's like all day it's like South Park. It's like South Park.
Oh God.
The Cleveland Show, and that's it. And then it's like that's it. And then it's like weird commercials for the Paramount Network, which is like it's just reality shows about tattoo artists or some shit. It's cable is. I am amazed cable is still alive at all. If that's what they have, is all.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Part of what happened is that Netflix. Basically, you see all these Netflix. They have that whole division called Netflix is a joke.
Right.
And so they went to all of these comedians that were sort of their specials were like the bread and butter of Comedy Central's lineup. And they said, hey, we'll give you full control over the show and the editing, and we'll pay you 2x, 3x as much money.
Right.
And I don't know if you know the history of Comedy Central's comedy specials. No one got editing control. No one. They would cut the shit out of those shows. So, funny story, when you go back and you watch, the two great examples were Dimitri Martin, the one where he's playing the guitar on stage the whole time. And then there's the Zach Galifianakis one where he's wearing layers of sweaters and ripping them off.
Yep.
Both of those were struck like Dimitri Martin has a different underlying theme for every act of his show. Zach Galifianakis takes the sweaters off in a very specific order, and both of them made it impossible to re-edit their special without it looking completely insane. And so it became this arms race of comedians finding ways to fuck over Comedy Central and make it impossible for them to cut up their specials.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if this is something that's been around for a while or if I'm just now noticing it, but it seems like every comedian, and maybe it's just like maybe 7 or 8 really popular comedians kind of all have podcasts and go on each other's podcasts. But there's I can't remember if it's like on Comedy Central's YouTube channel or whatever the hell it is, but now it's like they're taking, like Comedy Central is taking some of the comedians' podcasts that are being recorded video and putting them like on late night on Comedy Central.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really fucking weird. It's oh my God, I'm trying to remember. So it's like Nikki Glaser, however you say her last name.
Glaser.
And then like 2 or 3 others. So it's not like the people who are the most famous, but it's like the second or third.
Yeah, but like established people. Yeah.
Yeah, established people. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's been this like arms race for the last 10 years of trying to figure out like how do you make YouTube the TV series.
Yeah.
Ironically, like the first one to do it sort of predated YouTube, but it was iCarly.
Oh right.
Yeah.
And then Nickelodeon maybe came the closest of anyone 10 years later with Bizaardvark. I have children, if you can't tell.
I've never seen Bizaardvark.
I have no idea what Bizaardvark is.
Also, wasn't there like the E channel had the one Clips show with what's his name from Community, who later was in Community.
The Soup? Yeah, the Joe McHale one? Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
and then there's that stupid show that's also on Comedy Central that's like it's got Daniel Tosh in it, and it's like The Soup. It's like
yeah, but for web clips, yeah.
Right.
Is that still on?
I think Daniel Tosh, like, just watching, when I watched some of his stand-up and just watching it, he seems like a total piece of human garbage. And I think that's just like he got that show and everyone's like, you're not getting anything else, buddy. That's just, we're going to contain you in this show.
We have to contain him inside of this television show.
Just it's one thing.
He lives in the studio. He's not allowed to leave.
Dude. Well, I mean, like
the rooms must hold.
It's like in the center of the earth. There are no doors.
Chris Hardwick descending into rich douchedom notwithstanding, like At Midnight was such a good show.
It was, yeah.
Like the first American panel show in 2 generations. How has no one ripped off the world's most simple premise and made a new show out of that yet?
Yeah. It's a good question.
I miss it so much. I just don't want Chris Hardwick to host it.
Yeah.
Wait, quick. Everybody, quick pitch. Who do you want to host new At Midnight?
Ooh. That's an excellent question.
Because the obvious answer is Tig Notaro, because she won't know who any of them are. But
that would be amazing.
Hi, welcome to Tig Talk. Who are you?
I think the first episode would be just like her and her cats and her wife.
Yes.
That show already. I think that show already exists. And it's called Animal Talking.
Oh,
have you heard about this?
I have not.
I don't know what this is.
Oh, it's so good. I'm blanking on the name of it, but this one filmmaker who's obviously playing Animal Crossing on his island has created an actual studio and has had guests like Elijah Wood, Danny Trejo, and others, and they're including musical guests, and it is absolutely glorious.
Yeah, just a quick public service announcement. If anything happens to Danny Trejo during this crisis and you never see me again, it's because I just lost it and ran naked screaming into the woods. Because that's what's going to happen. If something happens to Danny Trejo.
I mean, if we have to have a president in their mid-70s, can it at least be Danny Trejo?
Yeah, no joke.
I support that.
Yeah.
He tweeted today that he's 76, like, today. And I'm like, what?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's sad because Danny, I know he's had the same face forever, but, like, how does 76-year-old Danny Trejo look younger than me?
I think it would be super ironic if we had to repeal, like, after Trump gets out of office, we had to repeal the rule that felons can't be president.
Yeah.
And then, like, just so Danny Trejo could be president. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look, in the list of alleged crimes committed by all of the presidential candidates, Danny Trejo is the most blameless.
That's true.
Yeah, he just, like, punched a guy at a gas station. That's all he did.
It's like the number of Afghan weddings Danny Trejo was responsible for exploding. So.
He's making tacos now, guys. Give him a break.
He's got a taco store. I think he's got like a cookie store. Like, no, he's the best.
Oh my god. Okay. So quick sidebar. Speaking of Animal Crossing, in Animal Crossing, I don't know if any of you guys have played it yet. But
No, I haven't.
In Animal Crossing, there's this island, this like weird hippie dog comes to your island eventually, and he's trying to get you to go to his island because he has a photography studio, and you go to visit it. It feels like he's trying to get you to be in like Gonzo porn or something. It's fucking terrible. And so
I've gotten that email before.
Yeah.
If your weed dealer invites you back to his island, don't go.
Yeah.
you go there and it's like a completely empty room with cardboard boxes and like a couch with like 10 lights aimed at it. Like, I'm uncomfortable. It's terrible. That's a weird fucking game. The weirdest thing about that game is that there's really nothing to do in it. Like, if you, it is multiplayer, but there's like, I mean, my friend Catherine plays it, and we had her over to, Tracy and I had her over to our island, and we're just like, yep, this is our island. Okay. This is what socializing is now, I guess.
Yep.
It's a chill simulator.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it.
Like, it's just, it's like if you took all of the legitimately stressful aspects of a farming simulator out, and then you added in some really bizarre market economy crap.
Yeah. It is like very subversively, well, not subversively, it's very blatantly capitalist when you're playing it, because you have like the raccoon landlords, and then it's like.
So did you ever play the original like N64 Animal Crossing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it good?
Well, here's the thing about the original, and this is also why Nintendo has been trying to convince all of us that Tom Nook is like actually a good guy for like, a generation.
He's a bad man.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
In the original, like, you're just showing up to this town on a train. You're just like, yeah, I'm just coming for the day. And they're like, hey, we have a rule against homelessness. Like, you have to have a house to live here. And then Tom Nook's like, okay, no, that's cool. Here, I'll let you stay in this place. And he shows you the door, and then he's like, oh, BT Dubs, you just bought it. You owe me like 100,000 bells. You better get your ass to work now, or I'll send my raccoon thugs to beat you up. This is the tutorial opening for what is actually a very chill game.
Well, that's the thing, is we're so far into late capitalism at this point that we think he's a good guy just because he's not charging interest on the loans. Like, that's all it takes to be a good man, I guess.
Which, I mean, God, can we just go back to a world where a guy forcing you into an interest-free home loan is the villain of the world?
And that's a great segue to when we're on the other side of this thing, what's going to be different and what's going to be the same, and doing your outline here.
I think that's really hard to say. I put this tweet that our friend Tim put up, where it's just like, if you are not showing signs of rapid mental deterioration, I have no idea, you must be a Cylon. I have no idea how this is even.
It's structured as a haiku. Some of you haven't yet succumbed to existential despair, and it shows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. If Wisconsin is teaching us anything right now, I don't think there's going to be a lot of actual change.
Right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Because I mean, okay, we open the doors, we reopen the city. Let's get to it. But let's be sensible, and let's take this slowly, and be smart about this. What's the first thing everyone does? Rush to the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really talk, like, I don't want to mention the name. Okay, so there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on, and I think it's interesting because when people in the news try to talk about them, they're like, we don't want to, lend credence to this or legitimacy by saying what the name of this movie or book that's,
right.
A conspiracy theory is. But I also feel like this is just kind of the same thing that's always been happening. It's just like we've basically created more conspiracy theorists by locking people in their houses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's some stupid movie that was on Netflix for a little while, and then like a bunch of it sounded like a bunch of rich IT people got it pulled somehow. Plandemic
Plandemic was on YouTube.
on YouTube.
Okay, it's weirder than that because if I remember correctly, what I saw, it was just the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it.
Like
Wow.
it was like a bunch of like trailer. It was a bunch of like clips, and then they were going to release the full thing.
Yeah.
And Google got spooked into pulling it because it's literally just okay. The entire thing is built around one disgraced doctor
Yeah.
who, God, it's this whole long story. Like 10 years ago, she publishes this groundbreaking paper about some kind of sleep disorder and a link she found to a bacteria. And she publishes, I think it's in the Lancet, it's in everything. It makes this big, huge splash. Very quickly, people try to replicate it. It doesn't work. It turns out it was from a contaminated culture. Okay, that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
It happens. What doesn't always happen is the researcher behind it doubling down and going, no, fuck you, I'm a genius. There's something wrong with all of you people.
Yeah.
And then it gets even weirder because she became convinced 10 years ago now that Anthony Fauci was personally responsible for her downfall. She has now spent the last decade cozying up to the alternative medicine and anti-vaxxer communities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's really interesting because what you've described is almost exactly the story of Andrew Wakefield too. Like it's very similar where it's like this disgraced doctor, same thing.
Well, the difference though is that Wakefield like was a scammer going in.
Right.
Like,
He was
literally
literally
passed a
falsified.
check that said, "Write me a report that says vaccines cause autism," and he said, "Well, here's your product."
But in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, it often happens the opposite way. Like a lot of times what they'll do, and I'm sure you guys all know this, but just if anyone listening doesn't know it.
I think you're about to describe the plot of Thank You for Smoking, but yes, go ahead.
Well, so what they'll do, what an industry will do is they'll pay people to research, and they'll have like 5 studies going at once, and whichever study says what they want it to say, they'll help that person get it published, and everyone else will just be like, oh, thanks, and they'll try to bury the research. So it's kind of like you're promoting the least competent person in many cases.
Yes, or you find one person who,
Like Andrew Wakefield.
yeah, you find one person, just double down on them. You know, like the German scientist that spent 30 years studying cigarettes and couldn't find a link to lung cancer. But yeah, basically it gets, oh God, I don't, like the whole story gets super weird. Like she literally spent time in jail for like falsifying.
I read an article. I think she was like hiding on a boat from the police at one point.
Yeah. So
She got wild there in the middle.
She's so far over the garden wall at this point. Like she's just, so one of the theories that she's pushing in that video is the idea that all of us carry viruses with us all the time and that we have to expel them. And if we don't, and if we wear a mask, it traps and activates the viruses that are already inside of you.
You gotta get rid of the Zetons.
Yes, the best way to fight disease is to breathe a lot, heavily as much as possible. So she's basically asking everyone in the middle of a respiratory pandemic to hyperventilate. It's
God.
It's so far beyond crazy, and there are so many people right now that have been conditioned to believe whatever the craziest person in the room says.
Yeah.
Ugh, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that like, oh man, like the anti-vaxxers and the pro-Trumpers are just playing.
If it were a Venn diagram, it's like
Yeah.
I think we all have to acknowledge at this point that, like, you know, we all throw a fit about, so from a political from a political science, political theory perspective, horseshoe theory is horseshit, right? That's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The two extremes can't meet, except you forget that, oh, no, crazy people exist.
Yeah.
And that crazy people like extreme things. And so it's not that hard to take a hippie who's afraid of vaccines and also convince them that we need to audit the Fed.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we talk about a lot, like in higher ed, is the decline of like, I don't know, expertise as a thing that people respect, I guess, would be part of it. Because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but to me, it's like, I have certain things that I know a lot about, but I'm also willing, like, I know I don't know very much about medicine. So I'm not like on Twitter every day, like, no, let me tell you. It's like, okay, so we got Anthony Fauci, and we have like the same number of people seem to kind of be in the camp of, this is a global pandemic, stay home, you know, don't go to barbecues, etc., that were in the camp of, you know, global warming's real, vaccines are good. Like, it seems to be this giant critical mass of like 98% of experts. And then you have these 2% over here who are saying crazy shit. And I mean, I guess back to Aaron's initial question of like, what changes after this pandemic is over? I mean, ideally, I would hope it's that we can sort of see like why there's that expert consensus, like why that's valuable, but it doesn't seem to be playing out that way. It just seems like everybody is hunkering down in their camps.
Okay. You know me. I have this theory that everything wrong with America is either Nixon or Reagan's fault. So
it's a fair theory.
I support it.
Let me give this rare moment where I'm going to defend Richard Nixon and then use that to shit on Reagan.
Yeah.
Richard Nixon was the last conservative in America who could be convinced by experts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not easily, but let's all remember that Richard Nixon is effectively the founder of the EPA.
Yeah.
Where he was, and like everyone was like, oh my God, like the rain has turned to acid. Our cathedrals are melting around us. You like forget seeing the Hollywood sign. Like in LA, you couldn't see the end of the street, right? It was a visible everyday thing. So he's like, okay, let's start the EPA. We'll do this. We'll do that. Blah 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 blah. And in the end, it bought him nothing. He got no goodwill from the left out of it because he was simultaneously burning down Vietnam and breaking into buildings and lying about shit. But in his mind, he's like, why didn't everyone give me credit? I saved the turtles. I saved their fucking turtles, and they give me nothing for it. Fuck those guys. So then Ronald Reagan comes along, whose expertise is starring as a coach in a movie that old people remembered.
Being in shitty cowboy movies.
Well, it's the Gipper. Like, literally, like, everyone, like, we make fun of it now. Oh, he was a TV cowboy. Like, at the time, he was known for playing, it was like the Rudy of, like, 1960.
Yeah.
And he's like, do it for the Gipper. I'm doing a Nixon again.
It's Nixon as Reagan.
Yeah, I can't do Reagan. Reagan just sounds like your grandpa sundowning and just gets a little lost as he tries to remember what's happening. And then he comes along and he's like, actually, I'm going to say this in a really folksy way that Richard Gecko is cool and fuck those turtles and everyone just make as much money as possible. And for absolutely nothing that he had to do with anything, it's the 80s and the economy takes off and the Soviet Union collapses and all this great shit happens and everyone's like, oh, you can throw an incompetent moron in the White House and everything will be fine.
Right. Yeah. With early onset Alzheimer's. Like, he wasn't just incompetent, he was also senile.
Right. And then, like, the flip side of that is everybody watched, Carter, who was probably the best human being that we've ever had occupy the White House. He's a shit president. What's that? What's that, Sarah?
No, I just said probably. I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, it's definitely a sliding scale. I mean, like, it took us like 4 of them before we got one who didn't own people, and then it took another like 20 before we found one that thought maybe owning people wasn't a good idea. And it, like, I'm pretty sure like Obama might have been the first actually anti-slavery president. Like, even Carter, like, let's be honest, like, he was a Georgian peanut farmer. Some days he probably woke up and went, man, this used to be easier.
Yeah.
But, you know, he kind of sucked at it. And mostly because he listened to the wrong experts, mostly military experts that were like, hey, invading Iran is easy. No, we can do it. But, yeah, and so now we are in this situation where conservatives have learned 2 great lessons. One, expertise doesn't buy you votes. And 2, doing the right thing doesn't actually make people like you more.
Yeah.
So rather than reach out to the grand middle, and okay, God, too many rants in one. This is also kind of Clinton's fault, Bill Clinton's fault. Because, you know, in the 90s, he was like, hey, what if I turned the Democratic Party into the Republican Party?
Right.
And then we could just own everything, and it worked too well, which then opened the door for people like, oh, shit, what's his name? The House leader during the impeachment, Newt Gingrich. Open the door for people like Newt Gingrich that are like, hey guys, what if we're just evil? Like, what if we set ourselves apart by just like literally eating the poor, but then telling the poor it's okay, we're eating you because you're better than black people?
Yeah.
And then so literally my theory is that if you don't get to Don Trump without Bill Clinton.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump is like a mixture of Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan. Like, he's kind of somewhere in between there.
Yeah, but it's like the it's like the Metal Gear Solid thing, where like for some reason when you're making clones you have to make like a dump stat version. It's like no, we had to make a defective one to dump all the recessive genes into.
Oh my God.
Man, can we make an entire podcast where we just try to tear apart the logic and timeline of the Metal Gear series?
I don't know anything about Metal Gear Solid, so you can make a podcast where you try to explain Metal Gear Solid to me.
That would be great.
At some point, you're going to fall asleep, at which point it will go, snake.
Yeah.
Snake.
So
Snake!
the whole point, basically what Chris is is saying is that like in Metal Gear Solid it's like a stealth kind of spy game, and there are all of these like mini bosses, and they're all just ridiculous anime characters.
Yeah.
Like that's really all it is. It's
the Metal Gear series is pretty much G.I. Joe, only there's only one Joe and everybody else is Cobra.
You're all wrong. It's Multiplicity, the anime. Eventually you slowly figure out that literally everyone is just clones of one guy. And the entire series is just a family feud that keeps trying to burn the world down. In other words, Star Wars.
Yeah, it's just like a series of monologues and soliloquies punctuated by brief violence.
Imagine the Palpatine clone dad reveal of the last Star Wars movie, but it happens every 15 minutes over the course of 6 games.
Oh, man.
Oh, and also there's
I don't play video games generally, and I feel good about continuing down that path now.
But Sarah, no, it's great. It's the female representation is amazing. There's one female character in every game. At one point, you see her in her underwear, and one of them doesn't talk. And the ones that do talk, those are the cutscenes you skip.
Oh man. Okay, so where the fuck are we in this outline?
I don't know.
We're all over the place.
We're at Quibi.
Oh god. Okay.
We can't talk about Quibi anymore.
We can't talk about Quibi anymore.
Well, I mean, one more thing about the way things are going to change and whatnot. So earlier this week, I saw on Facebook there was an ad for a new Russell Crowe movie, which pretty much yet another angry white male rage movie. Basically, it's Russell Crowe doing Falling Down, but that's not the point. The point, though, was that the commercial ended with only in theaters July, and I know it's like, and, this was posted on Facebook, to which, of course, I had to respond. Your optimism is adorable.
Yeah, that's gonna be the weird thing, is just getting people to feel comfortable. Like, even, I mean, obviously, and Chris and I were talking about this offline, and obviously, like, people with some amount of medical knowledge could explain this much better. But, it's not like it's going to be whatever August, and then we're never going to have to worry about this again. Like, it's going to over time. And, I mean, I think that's going to be the weird thing, is just, like, what is emerging back out into the world even look like in the near or distant future? I have no idea. Movie theaters are going to be fucking weird.
Look, I gotta be honest with you. So, like, I work at a university in the housing department that chose not to kick everybody out. So I've been working the entire time. And then beyond that, I have only gone to the grocery store when absolutely necessary. I've been spending all of my time at home. When I eat out, it's carry out back to the house.
Right.
Only leave the house. In other words, my life hasn't changed. Literally, with the exception of, like, not hanging out with Sarah like twice a month and not going to the movie theaters. That's how my life has changed.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was thinking about too. Is it's like, for indoor kids, this really isn't that different. It's just that you can't, like, if you wanted to, you can't go out. That's the only difference. Where
the hardest thing is that I can't go grocery shopping at 1:00 in the morning. Which is when I did all my grocery shopping.
Yep.
It's like a lot harder to get grocery pickup slots. Like, who knew? Like, everybody thought of, like, in the post-apocalypse, gold bullion or bottle caps. No, it's Instacart grocery pickup slots are the currency.
Oh, it's interesting when you run into that, because, like, I've been playing a bunch of, like, a fucking ton of games of, like, online PC games, and, like, my mouse and my headset both aided at the same time. Like, they just both crapped out. And trying to order that shit online now, like, you can't. You have to order it, like, from the company that makes it. Like, you can't find that shit on Amazon, nothing. So it's like that and toilet paper.
When all of this started, like the first week that everybody was officially supposed to stay home, the only toilet paper that you could order from Amazon was novelty toilet paper. This particular politician's face, or
the Democratic National Convention missed its opportunity there. But, like, Trump's face, I mean, you would have made so much money.
I don't want to see that at 1:00 in the morning.
Like, yeah. I don't know. I do miss movies, though. I do miss, like, going to theaters. That's a thing that I definitely miss.
So, like, here's the thing. Right now, we're missing going to movies. In a couple of months, we're going to miss there being movies because production's been shut down. But the flip side of that is this really amusing thing is happening where now the studios are like trying to buy each other's canceled projects. So, fun fact, we're actually going to get to see CW's canceled before it aired, despite being shot, Swamp Thing series. But I don't think on CW. I think someone else bought it.
Oh.
Did we lose Aaron?
Right when
Yeah,
you said
give me
Swamp
a
Thing,
second. I'll be back. Hold on.
it was funny. Right when Chris said
Keep
Swamp
talking
Thing,
amongst yourselves.
give us a
Aaron
topic.
hates Swamp Thing.
All right.
No,
Sorry.
Aaron loves Swamp Thing.
I'm doing this via my phone, and there was an incoming call, and I'm like,
Oh.
so yeah.
Did y'all remember the saga of Swamp Thing? That like it literally got shelved because they fucked up the math and they weren't getting a tax credit they thought they were getting.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get the tax credit, they decided the whole thing wasn't worth going ahead with.
Yeah.
After they shot it.
Yeah.
Oh,
The whole
God.
first season is done in a can.
Yeah.
Didn't that whole so when Universal tried to make, and I guess they still are probably doing this, where they made all the old Universal monster movies again. To me, Swamp Thing was kind of like that because Alan Moore did a Swamp Thing run, right? Like that was one of the things.
Well, he recreated the mythos. Originally, it was I'm a scientist. I get fall into a chemical fire and poof, I'm a half man, half plant thing. Alan Moore's contribution is no, you, Dr. Holland, are dead, but you're basically a plant deity or an earth deity who remembers being Holland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that was more interesting. But the character of Swamp Thing to me is just like so early, like mid 20th century. Like I didn't really get
For sure.
what it is. I don't know about you guys.
So,
But yeah, they are still going to be moving forward with a Universal Movie Monsters thing. They're just not going to do it as the dark
universe.
Right.
R.I.P.
What they realized was, hey, we don't know how to do horror anymore. There's these guys over here with Blumhouse who seem to know how to do horror. Let's see if we can get them to do our monsters, which is what happened with Invisible Man.
Look, I wish they'd have just plowed ahead with that universe clusterfuck. That would have been some trash fire. Just beautiful, beautiful. We could have got the next great Justice League, which is I am the one great defender of Justice League. Not saying it's good. I'm saying I like watching it because it is a mess.
It was the most watchable of all the DC Cinematic Universe movies until Wonder Woman came out.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just...
Yeah.
Speaking of DC, who's the one who tweeted something about like Birds of Prey being the first $1 billion movie at the box office? Like that was the studio's hope before all of this happened. Did you guys see that? Did you guys see Birds of Prey?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see it with Wendy.
Oh, cover your earmuffs, Aaron.
All right. Do your thing.
Here's the thing. Like, it's not a spoilable movie. It's not that kind of, look, I am that person that, like, I love Tank Girl. Yeah. I think Tank Girl is legitimately an amazing movie. It gets shit on too hard. It's a lot of fun to watch. Birds of Prey is the spiritual successor to Tank Girl.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah,
and so much fun. It's ridiculous in ways that it needs to be ridiculous. It's grounded in ways that makes it go, it's very character focused. It basically recreates the police station attack from Terminator, but in a fun way.
But she's Terminator, yes.
Yeah, with Harley Quinn with a grenade launcher full of glitter.
Yep.
Terminating her way through a police station. But that scene, oh my God, it's so good. And again, I'm not ruining anything because Margot Robbie's performance, everyone's performance is fantastic. Mm-hmm. She is so good.
Yeah.
That when you see her walk into the police station dressed like Carmen Sandiego, right? With this like full coat and the hat and the glasses, and she goes to the front desk and she's like, I'm here to report a terrible crime that I'm about to commit. Throws the coat off and but also, if you would have told me that the greatest comedic team in the history of mankind was going to be Margot Robbie, Rosie Perez, and my girlfriend.
It's Elizabeth something. I forget what her
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, my girlfriend. Who
whose name you can't remember.
It's a strained relationship.
Look, I have to share her with Ewan McGregor now, and it's just hard. I feel like I'm sharing both, but that is one of those relationships where you look at it and go, which one am I jealous of? But Mary Elizabeth Winstead, one, Murder Baby. I love Murder Babies. Do I have to explain what Murder Babies are? Is everybody on board with that?
You could. Might as well. I'm sure there's someone who doesn't know.
It's just these otherwise innocent, basically raised from birth to kill characters. Yeah. Your Damian Waynes, your Hit Girls, your
Arya Stark.
Yeah. These people who are emotionally and developmentally stunted, but very good at killing. Is a character trope that I love for God knows what reason. She takes it to such a logical extent to where the only thing she knows is how to kill.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's these amazing scenes of her practicing in the mirror, trying to set up her own catchphrase and code name, and it will not catch on. What does everybody call her? Bow Girl? Or,
like that, I don't remember.
Crossbow Killer. Yeah, everybody calls her Crossbow.
Oh yeah.
Crossbow Killer, and she's trying to be Huntress or something. Yeah. See, I think I may be the only person who will say it, but I actually liked that movie for the same reason I originally liked the Deadpool movies, because it's just kind of a ridiculous anti-hero flick. It's fun.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I thought about it though is I remember I went to see it with Tracy and we liked it, but the pacing is really fucking weird in that movie. It seems way longer than it actually is, I think.
For Birds of Prey?
That's what I felt, but I've only seen
it once.
No. Have you guys watched it at home?
Yeah.
No, I only saw it once in the theater.
See, I feel like if I watch it again at home, because it was weird. I remember coming out of that movie and thinking I liked everything about that movie, but just something about the pacing. I think so. First of all, I saw Rosie Perez and I was immediately overjoyed. So that sold the movie by itself. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I should probably go and watch it again before I talk anymore about it.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Go back and watch any action-y film of that. Go back and watch Tank Girl. Then watch that movie again. And what you realize you're watching is that it's that 90s aesthetic's not the right word. The 90s pace.
Yeah.
Where it was just slower.
Right.
It takes
Crow is like that too. Yeah, it is. Right.
I like that. I like him. Look, oh my God. Look, I'm that asshole, right? That I was raised on a steady diet of 70s action noir movies where even the 60s and 70s especially, where the movies are 40 to 50% people walking through doors by time.
Right? Only drinking coffee, driving places.
Yes.
Yep.
And when you see it now, it feels like such a choice.
Yeah.
And I enjoy letting it breathe. And it used to be way
Yeah.
more. Go back and watch like the old Bond movies. If he dials a phone number, you're going to watch him dial every number of that phone number. When he goes somewhere, you have to see him drive there, park, walk in, walk through the lobby, take the elevator, go down the hallway, and then enter the room. That's too far. By the 70s, we figured out people could tell when you show an establishing shot, people understand.
Yeah.
For the longest time, studio executives were like, how do they know they went there? They got to make sure that what do they just teleport? You can't have them teleporting around like that. These are real conversations that were had.
Yeah.
The first time you ever hear the James Bond guitar riff inside the dun, 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 Doctor No, he's walking across the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah.
And you watch it in real time.
Mhm.
I kind of love that. It was too far. It was too much. But when you watch something like Birds of Prey, it gives the characters room to breathe. Like, here's the thing about Birds of Prey. You think about all the characters. Think about how few characters that movie has compared to every comic book movie you've seen in 10 years.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Fucking Aquaman. Every 45 seconds, you are meeting a new named character.
Yeah.
And I like Aquaman. It's like, oh yeah, here's the guy who taught me to swim. Okay. Here's the guy who...
Here's my friend Bob the dolphin.
Yeah, here's the Crab King. Like, oh my god, the Avengers movies again. Also, it's just boom, 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 character.
Yeah.
I like a movie that takes its time and lets it breathe. And like Yanthamos, like we were talking about before I bothered to start recording this.
Mhm.
Look, let me just real quick jump back to like The Favorite. Two of my favorite movies of the last couple of years are The Favorite and The Lobster, both by both by the same director, whose name I cannot pronounce and will not try while recording. Who, I mean, it's stretched, and the silence and letting you just stew in whatever is happening. And I'm like, oh yes, just calm, soothe my nerves and make me feel horrified at the same time. Oh my god, speaking of all this pandemic shit, hey, because we can do screen sharing, y'all want to see the scene from the Blacklist finale that they had to very quickly animate because they couldn't finish filming?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh my god, wait, okay, let me figure out. Whatever you think it's going to look like, you need to understand you're wrong and it's worse.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Like, Joe, you might have to cut this later. This might be a copyright problem because this is an IPN video.
Well, the thing is, it might get claimed, but it's fair use if we're talking about it.
It's 50 seconds. We'll just have to talk over it.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. I don't usually host. Screen. Share. All right, you seeing this?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh my god. Okay, first, before you... oh my god.
Wait, I turned the sound off.
Okay, I have to confess, you completely fooled me. I mean, I thought she was dead as a beaver hat. With the gunshots and dragging her off and convincing Townsend. To be honest, it didn't even occur to me the whole thing was an act for me. And what did I do? I bit like a bass on the top water.
Oh my god, who is animating this?
Really clever. Bravo. If I don't end up killing the two of you,
It's like cel-shaded and individually rendered hairs.
because
Yes.
so fun. We set the meeting with
Wait. We're getting to the best part where then it fades back to live action.
You're not the variable I'm worried about.
Ba-ba-ba-ba.
Oh my god.
This is...
That looks like hot ass. That is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
That looks like 90s computer game graphics.
I was gonna say welcome to PlayStation 2. You know what it reminds me of? Like whenever you're playing Mass Effect or something and you make a super fucked up looking character and then they're in the cutscenes, it's like some dude wearing a clown hat with like a perm. It's
well, it's like something that the Telltale Games folks looked at and said, nah.
Well, you know what makes it look really bad is a lot of times in games now they have people like in mocap suits, and so their movement actually looks, you know, organic. That's not. That's just some dude. I don't know. I'm really surprised they couldn't find someone to more, you know, expertly animate that.
This feels like a very last minute decision.
Yeah.
Where they were like, fuck, we have like 6 pickups. Apparently there's a couple of scenes like that where they're like, they had to do a couple of pickups and they weren't done, and it's the last episode of the season, and you can tell this is senioritis, where they were like, it's also the Blacklist, which we should all point out. I don't think anyone involved in that show expected a second season. That's one of those shows that legitimately felt surprised when they ended up being like the #1 rated show in their time slot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, have any of you ever watched The Blacklist?
No.
I've watched it like where you fall asleep in front of the TV and you wake up and it's on. That's all I've done.
I watched the pilot, and it was bananas.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bananas enough to. I love James Spader. It wasn't enough to make me continue.
Yeah.
It's a kind of show where 90% of his character is hat work.
Yeah.
Where no one mentions his fedora during the show. They're like, why is he wearing a fedora?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, in Justified when eventually they had to like just give him a season without a hat just so that people would stop focusing on the hat so much.
I got so distracted. Well, have you guys seen any episodes of Billions? I feel like that's
No.
It's really fucking weird. It's kind of that same group of characters, except they're just like all Mark Zuckerberg is basically what it is.
You're not like, selling me.
No, that's the point. Is like, who wanted to make this movie or this show? I don't understand who this is for.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a movie with no heroes, but like, you gotta give me a human being to latch onto in a TV series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, and that brings us back to our discussion about antiheroes. Yeah.
Too late for that, Aaron.
Really working on those segues.
But seriously, I mean, one of the things that you asked in the outline, Joe, was moving forward, how can we save the antihero as a popular culture thing? And I think a big part of it is not framing the antihero as being the hero or being right all the time. In the YouTube video essayist known as Renegade Cut very succinctly described perfectly one of the major problems with Rick and Morty, in that Rick Sanchez is almost always, like, there might be an episode or two, but almost always Rick is presented as always being right, and in particular always being right about hope and compassion being stupid and the wrong choice. And I think that's one way to save the antihero in the future, because I mean that's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of BoJack Horseman, and BoJack is a terrible person, but in the larger scope of the story, his terribleness is not presented as something to aspire to or the correct thing. It's always, this is a horrific train wreck. He's charming, but he's a train wreck, not to be emulated.
Yeah.
Well, the most successful anti-hero movies of the last several years, and they've started to like, okay, let's try to blah 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 blah. Okay, big rant. I like the great anti-heroes of the comic bookdom are these like like 70s and 80s characters that I mostly hate.
Yeah.
I hate Punisher. I hate Venom. Wolverine is way overrated. Let's just be completely honest as a character.
And Wolverine he's overexposed. Like he's not even an anti-hero anymore.
Right. Okay. No, that's exactly my point.
He's a fun uncle.
Yeah. These movies that have worked by taking the anti-heroes and just not making them anti-heroes anymore. The only Wolverine movie that works is the one where he is literally just a long-suffering son and father.
Yep.
He's not being an anti-hero at all. He's literally just like, he's got like a dad with dementia. He's got a daughter with murder ADD, and he's just trying to just get through the day. He's just tired.
Yeah. Marvel's doing a really great job of letting or Marvel and DC are both doing a good job of letting their anti-heroes evolve, with some exceptions. But like like Batman now not only has several children, but a biological kid, and is now married.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what really,
where's the sitcom with him, Kitty Pryde, and Baby? Just living in the mansion, and it just chronicles what they do on days off.
I want to see Batman go to a parent-teacher conference.
For Damien.
Yes.
The way to sell that script is to contact the people who are doing the Harley Quinn cartoon.
Yes. Very much so.
Is that good?
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so
I
good.
keep seeing clips of it. I haven't watched it yet.
It's so good.
But see, like, well, I feel like
it really is really good. Like it really identifies the emotional core as being Harley and Poison Ivy, right? Where it's it's hard to explain and simultaneously very simple. I mean, it's an R-rated Friends reboot with D-list DC villains.
Yeah.
But like, okay, the other ways, again, trying to resuscitate these anti-heroes in ways that actually work. Venom. Sarah and I
love Venom.
We loved Venom. That was one of our favorite movies of last year. Was it last year or the year before? God.
I don't remember. Time has no meaning anymore.
It was in the before time.
Doolittle was 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Venom.
I'm so glad that the last movie that you and I saw in theaters was not the time I drove you to the movie theater while you were high on painkillers to go see Doolittle.
I had a great time at that movie. No one else did. Hey, remember, kids, if you're going to watch Doolittle, take Oxy.
I agree. I was sober for that. I had much less fun.
Yes. The Venom, like it's if you need to show someone one scene to explain why they should watch Venom, it's a scene with, again, the only two characters that matter, Tom Hardy talking to Tom Hardy while running through the woods, where he's like, "You're a loser, Eddie, but so am I. I'm considered a huge loser amongst my people too. But we have to do this to save both of our worlds. Okay." And then they look at the one dude who's like running towards the rocket. It's like, "Who's that? Can we take that guy? Is he better than us?" "That dude has shit you haven't even imagined." Which is an actual line from the movie. It's like, "Do we have a chance of stopping him?" "None." "Oh, okay, here we go." Basically, they turned him into like Booster Gold. And I love Booster Gold. Give me a Booster Gold movie. Oh my God. Sarah, who did I say yesterday should play Booster Gold? I had someone in mind and I can't remember now.
I don't remember. Did you say?
Yes. Aaron, I can't pronounce his name. The dude who played Han Solo in Solo.
Oh,
yeah, that guy.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Who
that would be a good Booster Gold.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see Hail Caesar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, needless to say, I think he'd be amazing Booster Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
make a Booster Gold Blue Beetle movie. Like, that's what everybody wants.
Yes, I love Blue Beetle. Yeah, I mean, so my take on the whole anti-hero problem is, to me, it's kind of like when you have like all these Tea Party people in government, when you have like a libertarian who gets put in government and they don't know what to do with the power because their whole existence is like rallying against government. It's the same thing with 90s anti-heroes, where it's like they become popular and then suddenly they've totally lost like their motivation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, none of the characters are interesting anymore. But I do like this idea of rehabilitating or like kind of recentering the narrative on the actual lives of the anti-hero, not just like when they're out destroying things, but just like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy sitting at home watching TV. I mean, to me, that is for some reason much more interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, like the first season of Harley Quinn, the animated series, is entirely based around Harley wanting to become just famous enough to join the what's it called? Like the
Legion of Doom.
The Legion of Doom.
Oh yeah.
she's basically trying to put her CV together. And like trying to get a crew together of people, like essentially, like, but she still has this like stink on her of the fallout with Joker, so like no one wants to piss off Joker by working with her. It's like it's the most relatable possible thing, where it's like, God, I'm trying to make a name for myself in this industry and no one is giving me an opening.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do this shit for myself.
Yeah.
It has this amazing running gag of she's trying to get a really cool nemesis, and essentially the Robin, but it's which Robin is it? It's the
assassin, Damien.
Yeah, but it's Damien, but it's still like 13-year-old Damien. He's publicly claimed her as his arch nemesis. And she's like, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so cute! Look at him go!" And she's like, "No one's gonna take me seriously. But they think I get my ass kicked by this child."
The show does a spectacular job of looking at familiar characters in a deeper, more interesting light. Like, for example, the way they portray Commissioner Gordon is magnificent, because he's portrayed as pretty much the one sane police officer who's trying to keep all this shit together. And so, so he's when you see him, he's this haggard guy who's just barely holding it together. And I know that sounds odd, but it's hysterical.
Yeah. So the thing that I think this would be a good like way to go out is I can't remember if this is another tweet, because this is the only like human interaction we get on the regular, is so some woman who's, it's like she and her husband are both fairly well known for whatever reason. I think they were journalists, but she was like, are podcasts just for like an excuse for middle-aged dudes to talk to each other? Is that what this is? And it kind of, I mean, like, she's not wrong. Podcasts have other purposes, but I don't know. I kind of wonder what this is doing, like what this whole situation is doing to podcasts, because now it's like everything kind of is a podcast. Like if you watch, like even some major news shows, it's just a bunch of people in a Zoom meeting like this, just talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the new Saturday Night Live episodes are pretty much just.
How many Zoom jokes can you do? That's the whole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a whole weird thing. I mean, professional DJs. I mean, like professional, real DJs, not hobbyists.
Yeah.
Are doing stuff. Have taken their work to to Twitch, and like hey, my bar can't support me, but hey, subscribe and tip, put stuff in the tip jar. So it's a whole new thing.
Okay, can we just point out also that these have been some of the best SNL episodes in a long time?
Yeah.
Because it's forced them to go back to brass tacks and remember that SNL is about a bunch of extremely sad Tinkerbells that need laughs to live.
Yep.
Yep.
And whenever they embrace that, like, oh my God, the middle-aged mutant Ninja Turtles sketch,
Oh God. Yeah.
so perfectly captured when, like, back to the Smigel era, right? Like, right
Yeah,
when they remembered that, like, oh, we just need to be weird, and a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. People forget that the Muppets premiered on were on SNL for a time.
Or
Yeah.
The Muppet Show, like, oh my God, like, how has no one done like the sequestered Muppet Show yet?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
is
a good idea.
perfectly
That does seem like the
designed.
kind of thing that the Henson Company would do.
Yeah.
That's very on brand for them.
It is. Well, and even if you just think about like the SNL performances that have been, where you can tell like certain people on that show are really in their element, is like all the stuff Kate McKinnon does, where it's just like her.
Yeah.
It's just like her wilding out in her shitty New York apartment, and it's still entertaining. It's like
The
it's like-
funniest thing I've seen on that show in a decade is the one where her and Adie Bryant are the two secretaries on the Zoom call.
Oh yeah.
that hits real close to home, though. That's the thing. Like anyone who's been in a group meeting where it's like you've got this like 85-year-old secretary who usually has to take the minutes trying to figure out how to do that. And it's like this view the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we lost Sarah, or she's frozen.
No, I'm still here. I hit a notification accidentally when I was trying to dismiss it
Oh,
on my phone.
But Joe, you were
I'm
looking
the
for
80-year-old woman in the Zoom
an
meeting.
outro. You were looking for an outro for us, though.
yeah, I mean that's essentially the outro. We could keep hanging out, but this is already like an hour and a half. And harkening back to Sarah's original advice years ago, like let's try to keep this under 5 hours.
Yeah.
Because I do have to edit it at some point.
All right. Well, good seeing you all.
Oh,
Anything else you want to say on video before I kill it?
I don't know. Do you guys have anything?